Hello everyone, welcome back. It's your host CyberBored, and today we're going to be continuing with our home lab project by installing the virtual machines we mentioned in the last episode. Now, to kick things off, we're going to start by talking about the differences of Windows Server 2022 and 2019. Now, I'm going to leave this article somewhere either in the description or on the top corners for you to read further on. As you can see, some main key features of differences between Windows 2022 and 2019 are improved security, better platform flexibility, new Windows Admin Center, graded hypervisor manager, hybrid cloud support, which means now Windows Server 2022 can be supported by Acer, which is something pretty cool, especially for cloud security enthusiasts, and enhanced Kubernetes experience. Now we're going to start by installing VirtualBox. The reason why we chose the vendor VirtualBox over other vendors is because it's free, it supports our needs. Now, if you would like, you could always go for some other vendors like VMware, but the key difference is the features that VirtualBox offers for free. You can have them on VMware for paid price. Now, I do recommend VMware over VirtualBox just because it's constantly updated and has better security. Now, to install VirtualBox, simply search for VirtualBox, click the first link, but make sure that the URL is virtualbox.org. Press download, choose the host that you're going to be using for the virtual machines. Now for me, I'm going to be using Windows host, and simply just press download. Now as you can see, I've already installed it, so I'm going to move the next step. Now for the next step, we're going to be installing Windows 10. Simply search for Windows 10 installation or download and press the first link, which is microsoft.com software download Windows 10. We're going to be installing Windows 10, and you can just search Windows 10 download or installation, or type the URL in the search bar, which will lead you to this website. And we need to install Windows 10 installation media. Now I've also already installed it, so we're going to be moving to the next step. Now on the next step, we're going to be installing VirtualBox and the media creator and configuring them. I would like to point out one key thing is that Windows installation key media does not work unless you are on admin's account. Now after installing Windows installation media, we just open it and we're going to be welcomed by this window. Now Windows 10 image, we simply press create installation media. Next, configure whatever settings you would like. For me, I'm going to keep it as default settings. Then press next, ISO file, next, and choose the location where you want to install it. Save and wait for the process to finish. After installing Windows 10, Windows Server 2022 and VirtualBox, we're going to start setting up all the virtual machines and configuring them. To start setting up Windows Server 2022, we launch VirtualBox, press new, choose whatever name you would like, Windows Server for example. While installing Windows Server 2022, we don't want to add the ISO image now, we add it after we set up everything. Just choose the version that you want, which in my case is Windows 2022, press next, choose the base memory and processor. It is recommended to have at least 2.5 megabytes base memory and 2 CPU processors. Press next, choose the allocated memory you want to give for the Windows Server. I'm going to give it 95 gigabytes, which is way more than what we need. Press next and finish. After the setup, we can go to the settings, system. We can turn off the floppy disk. If you haven't configured the processor and the CPU, you can do it now in the setting. And we need to set up 2 network interface cards. One going to have NAT protocol, which is, as mentioned before, it is network address translation, which will combine all of our private IP addresses into one public IP address, which we are going to use it to connect to the internet. And for the second one, we're going to use an internal network, which is going to be the gateway for all our endpoint devices. And finally, we can go to storage, choose empty disk, choose a disk file, and choose the ISO image for Windows 2022, which in my case it's called Server Eval X64 FRE English US, and press OK, and we can launch. After launching Windows Server 2022, we are going to be prompted with this window. All you need to do, choose whatever language you would like, press next, install now. And while it's loading, I would like to explain to you why did we skip on setting up the ISO image immediately. For some reason, whenever I'm trying to launch launch Windows Server and I set up the ISO image earlier on, it always crashes and never loads for me to be able to install it. Now that it's loaded, we need to choose Windows Server 2022 Standard Evaluation Desktop Experience. Press next and wait for it to load more. Accept the terms and conditions, next, and choose custom install Microsoft Windows, next, and wait for it to load. In the meantime, while Windows 2022 is installing, let's go and start by setting up Windows 10 host machine. Now all we need to do is just choose a name, and just as before, we are going to skip on the ISO image just for the convenience of having better configuration over Windows 10. Choose the name, choose the base memory, choose the CPU processor, press next, allocate memory, press next, and finish. Then we are going to go back to the setting and we're going to configure the settings of the virtual machine by turning off floppy disk, choosing the storage ISO image, and we're going to set up internal network since we're going to use the Windows server as a gateway and we're going to connect our Windows 10 to our Windows server, and we're going to simply press OK. Now that Windows Server 2022 is loaded, all we need to do is just choose a password, any password really. We're going to create a new user later on to configure it. After choosing a password, we are going to check if everything is fine by logging into our user login, and everything should be set up fine. Now what I usually prefer to do once I install a virtual machine, I would installing guest additions to the virtual machine to make the screen resolution better and the experience is going to be smoother. To install the guest machine, all we need to do is mount the guest additions, navigate to the virtual machine guest additions, and install VirtualBox Windows Edition AMD64. Then we'll press next, next, and install. And just like that, VirtualBox guest edition is going to be installed. We're going to have smoother experience and the screen resolution is going to be adjusted automatically. With that done, we're going now to configure Windows 10 virtual machine. Just like the previous steps, we're going to press next, install now. If you have Windows activation key, you can simply insert it in this text box, or you can simply just press I don't have product key, then choose Windows 10 Pro, as choosing Windows 10 Home Edition is not going to allow us to connect to the domain controller. Then press next, accept, and next, custom installation, next, and we're going to wait for it to finish the installation. Now let's go back and check on our Windows server, sure that the guest additions are all working fine. All we need to do is just expand the screen and it's going to be adjusted automatically. As you can see, the mouse movement is way smoother and you can get on and out of the screen easily. Now with that done, we're going to continue with the setup for Windows 10 virtual machine. Now these installations are optional. You can obviously substitute Debian to any Linux or Unix kernel that you would like. For me, I chose Debian as I would like to configure it and install the application that I only need. To install it, we just search for Debian or type this URL and then we will press 64-bit PCNet.iso download and then save. To install Metasploitable, all we need to do is either type this URL in the search bar or search for Metasploitable virtual machine download, and all we need to do is enter these fields to request a copy of the Metasploit. Now after Windows 10 have finished installation, just continue with the configuration. We just press yes, again we press yes. We don't need the second keyboard layout, so we're going to skip it. Since we haven't configured yet our domain controller, so we're not going to have any access to the internet, so we're going to skip also on the internet, and I don't want to go through the trouble of creating or connecting to anything, so I'm going to just press continue with limited setup access and just choose a name, user, a password, and then setting up the security questions at choosing the username. You can either keep them on or you can turn them off. I always like turning them off because it kind of limits the access to what Microsoft has over your system. And just like that, we have set up the initial installation of Windows 10 and Windows Server 2022. And as you can see now, we have set up Windows 10 virtual machine and Windows Server 2022. For the optional virtual machines installation, I'm going to have a dedicated videos for them where I'm going to show you how to build your own custom Linux hacking machine, and we're going to have some few enumerations against our Metasploitable. Later on, we're going to configure our own Active Directory and domain controller, connect our Windows 10 machine to our domain controller, and configure all the securities necessary for our domain controller. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.